Herb Simon, whoever is running the entire basketball operations, you got to do something about the leadership with the Indiana Fever, the front office, and one Stephanie White. Are you motherfuckers all in cahoots together?
They actually handed us a reason to riot. Right now, in the middle of a full-blown crisis with every camera in the country trained on this franchise, the Indiana Fever front office looked at the chaos swirling around them and decided to pour gasoline directly onto it.
I don't know what this franchise is doing. This is a franchise that badly needs bigs. And my God, if they have not gone out here and signed another guard.
This isn't a minor miscalculation. This isn't a front office stumbling in the dark. This is a deliberate, inexcusable slap across the face of every single person who has invested their heart into the Caitlin Clark era. And we are not going to sit here quietly and pretend it isn't. The news hit like a gut punch, and the shockwaves are still spreading. The Indiana Fever have officially activated their developmental contract slot, the one roster move they have been hoarding for 4 straight weeks like it was some kind of precious resource. 4 weeks of fans screaming for front court help. 4 weeks of film evidence piling up. 4 weeks of everyone with functioning eyes begging this front office to address the glaring, bleeding wound in their front line. And what did Amber Cox and Kelly Krauskopf do with that golden opportunity? They signed an 8th guard.
Hell, I'm out here telling people, yeah, we probably can't sign Kate Martin because we got too many guards. Shit, you made all of us look like fools. You went and signed another guard anyway, and it wasn't Kate Martin. What the is going on?
Read that again. An 8th guard, not a forward, not a center, not a single ounce of front court reinforcement. While the entire basketball world was pointing at the paint and screaming for a physical presence, this front office looked at a roster already drowning in backcourt bodies and decided what it really needed was one more. This is not a basketball decision. This is performance art. This is the most aggressively wrong roster construction move we have seen on a national stage in years, and it is happening to the most watched player in WNBA history. This isn't just a bad signing, it is a full confession, a signed, notarized document from this front office admitting that they are completely detached from the reality the rest of us are watching every single night. They are operating in a parallel dimension where the problems on the floor don't exist, and they are dragging Caitlin Clark's rookie season into that dimension with them. Fans didn't just react to this news, they detonated.
Exactly in what pecking order is Caitlin Clark now? Is she 3rd? Shit, before we know it, Caitlin Clark's going to be coming off the bench as a 6th man because I'm starting to wonder.
Here's what makes this so absolutely suffocating to watch. Before this move, the Indiana Fever already had 7 guards suiting up on their active roster. 7. Count them: Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Raven Johnson, Tasha Harris, Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, Shatori Walker-Kimbrough. That is not a backcourt. That is a traffic jam. That is enough guard depth to stock 2.5 WNBA rosters, while every team in the league would kill for one reliable big. But this front office looked at those 7 guards and decided the solution to their problems was an 8th. They are not building a basketball team. They are building a monument to mismanagement, and spacing and winning basketball are buried somewhere in the foundation. To fully grasp why this is a complete horror show, you have to go back to Saturday night and stare at what actually happened on that floor. The Fever opened their season against the Dallas Wings in a game that was supposed to announce a new chapter. Instead, it became an 11-minute overtime nightmare that put every single roster flaw under a magnifying glass in front of a national audience. The final score was 107-104. A loss that never should have happened given what the stars of this team delivered, because Caitlin Clark gave you 20 points and 7 assists. Kelsey Mitchell went absolutely nuclear for 30. Aaliyah Boston was a freight train with 23 points and 7 assists. 73 combined points from 3 players. A championship-caliber performance on opening night television, and they still lost. They lost because the moment Aaliyah Boston sat down to rest, the entire interior of this team evaporated. The Wings got physical in the paint, and the Fever had zero answers. The bench players who logged meaningful minutes combined for a catastrophic 22 points on efficiency that would embarrass a Summer League squad. The structure collapsed in real time, on camera, for the whole country to witness. And then this front office responded by adding another guard. Another guard. They added another guard.
We have signed a guard, Bree Hall, to a player developmental contract. We have signed guard, Bree Hall.
Let that settle in your chest for a second, because the Dallas game didn't just expose a weakness, it broadcast a medical emergency across every screen in this country, and the front office looked at the wreckage and handed the surgeon a Band-Aid. And somehow, impossibly, that Band-Aid was a guard. As if this team was sitting around desperate for more perimeter help while the entire paint was on fire. Let's go back to what we all watched. The Fever didn't just lose that game. They were physically dominated, out-rebounded by double digits, pushed around in the paint during every single critical possession when the game was on the line. Monique Billings wasn't even on the floor. She's out with an injury, and that hole in the rotation was cavernous. Hines Allen showed up, played minutes, and contributed absolutely nothing of value. Damaris Dantas couldn't find her footing in limited time. The front court depth was a graveyard, and the whole country watched it happen in real time. The one exception, the one person who gave us any reason to believe that position could be addressed, was Saxton Timpson. 11 points, perfect shooting. She did everything you could ask of a player in that situation. And Stephanie White gave her 18 minutes. 18. In a game where the team was being physically erased from the paint, the one big who was actually producing got pulled and left on the bench. Nobody has explained that decision. Nobody has justified it. It just happened, and we're all supposed to move on.
Did they send you in undercover to try to kill her career at this point? I mean,
Aaliyah Boston is a human being. She is not a machine. You cannot run her for 40 minutes of grinding, physical, high-stakes basketball, night after night, and expect that to be sustainable. She needs a real backup. She needs a power forward who can catch a pass without it becoming a live ball turnover. A center who can protect the rim when Boston needs 3 minutes to catch her breath. Every single fan in the building saw this. Every analyst covering this team saw it. The opposing coaching staff in Dallas absolutely saw it and exploited it mercilessly. The evidence was not subtle. It was screaming. And the front office added a guard. This is not a mistake. This is a pattern. We have been telling you about this pattern since the moment Raven Johnson was selected at number 10 in the draft, while legitimate, ready-to-contribute forwards were still sitting on the board waiting to be taken. That was the first signal. Then they brought Walker Kimbrough back. Then they locked Lexi Hull into a multi-year extension. They are stockpiling guards like there's a shortage coming, like they're operating in a dimension where front court size simply doesn't exist as a concept. The backcourt obsession has crossed from questionable philosophy into full-blown organizational delusion. Think about what this roster actually looks like right now. Aaliyah Boston, and then a collection of forwards who have been inconsistent at best and invisible at worst. That's the front court. That is what they're asking Stephanie White to work with, while also expecting championship-level results. It is a roster that does not reflect the talent around it. It feels less like a construction project and more like a quiet dismantling, carried out by people who fundamentally do not understand what they have in Caitlin Clark and what she actually needs to succeed. And then it got worse. Because the timing of this developmental signing isn't just a basketball mistake, it's a message. Developmental roster spots exist for a specific purpose. Young players, limited experience, high upside, long runway. That is the design. But in professional sports, timing is never neutral. Context is everything. By burning this spot on another guard at this exact moment, right after the Dallas destruction, right after the entire country watched the Fever get physically punished in the front court, the front office is making a declaration. They are announcing loudly and clearly that they do not consider the front court situation to be an emergency. They are doubling down. They are choosing the same failed small ball identity even after watching it get exposed on national television with zero shame.
Did they send you in undercover to try to kill her career at this point? I mean,
Stephanie White is now standing in an impossible place. She was brought in to be the architect, the elite tactician who would finally unlock the full potential of the Clark to Boston two-man game, one of the most dangerous weapons this league has ever seen. But you cannot run that system without support. You cannot create consistent space for Caitlin Clark when every defense in the league knows they can completely ignore your bench forwards and just collapse the paint and swarm the perimeter. You cannot build something legendary with broken materials. The front office handed her a toolbox with nothing but screwdrivers and told her to construct a skyscraper. And when the fans figured out what was actually happening here, they absolutely lost it. And understand something. That reaction is not a fan base throwing a tantrum over one bad signing. This is not an emotional overreaction from people who don't understand basketball. What you are watching right now is the most analytically sharp, statistically obsessed, ride or die supporter base in the entire history of women's professional sports, reaching a breaking point after 4 straight weeks of front office decisions that keep spitting in the face of the obvious. Caitlin Clark fans don't just watch highlights. They track usage rates. They pull up box scores at midnight. They build spreadsheets on lineup efficiency. They see everything. And what they've been seeing since the jump of this season has been a slow-motion disaster being dressed up as a plan. These fans called the off-ball philosophy out before it even fully broke down. They were right. They flagged the depth problem before it became a crisis on the court. They were right again. And now, 4 weeks deep, with this 8th guard signing sitting there like evidence at a crime scene, they are screaming from every corner of the internet that this front office is fundamentally misreading what this roster actually needs to survive. And they are right a 3rd time. At what point does being right over and over again stop being dismissed as fan noise and start being treated like the truth? But here is where it gets even uglier, because now Stephanie White has to stand in front of a microphone and answer for this. And there is no clean exit from that room. If she defends the signing, she looks completely disconnected from the reality of what is falling apart on her own floor every single night. If she pushes back on it, she is publicly going to war with Amber Cox and Kelly Crosskoff before the calendar even flips to May. The front office has essentially handed their own head coach a cup filled with jet fuel and told her to go fight a fire with it. That is not a front office supporting their coach. That is a front office setting her up to absorb the blast when this whole thing detonates. And Wednesday night against the Atlanta Dream just became one of the most important games of this young season. Because Atlanta has watched the film. Every team in this league has watched the film. They know exactly what happens when they attack the paint against Indiana. They know that if Aaliyah Boston picks up 2 fouls in the first quarter, which happens, the Fever have nobody coming off that bench who can hold the interior together. Are we actually going to watch a lineup of 5 players standing under 6 feet tall try to guard a professional front court? Is that the product? Those $19 ticket prices for the Atlanta game stopped looking like a fan promotion the moment this signing dropped. Now they look like a franchise quietly acknowledging that what they're putting on the floor has a credibility problem. When your tickets are priced like a clearance rack, people start asking whether the product deserves a premium. And right now, this roster construction is giving them every reason to say no. This is a disaster. Not a bump in the road, not a rough patch. A structural, philosophical, leadership-level disaster. You cannot build around a generational talent like Caitlin Clark and then spend 4 consecutive weeks solving every problem except the one that is actually killing you. You cannot hand your franchise cornerstone a front court that can't stay out of foul trouble and a bench that goes ice cold the second the starters sit down. You cannot keep drafting answers to questions nobody asked, while the real question, who is protecting the paint, who is giving Caitlin a legitimate second weapon, who is making this team harder to game plan against, goes completely unanswered. 4 weeks. Same problem. New guard. No explanation that holds up. And the clock on all of that is no longer measured in weeks. It's measured in days. 3 days. That's all that stands between the Indiana Fever and a moment of truth that the entire league is going to be watching. 3 days for Stephanie White to figure out how to patch a roster, built like a house with no foundation. 3 days for a front office to reckon with the reality that you cannot solve a front court crisis by handing out contracts to more perimeter players. The math doesn't work. The logic doesn't hold. And everybody in this building already knows it. If Atlanta walks into that gym on Wednesday and bullies this team in the paint again, and I mean physically, repeatedly, without consequence, the backlash from this fan base is not going to be a slow burn. It is going to be an explosion. We are already past frustrated. We are past disappointed. The people who show up every night, who buy the jerseys, who stream every road game in a different time zone, they are done being handed talking points instead of solutions. They want a roster that is worthy of the player they came to watch. They want construction that makes sense. They want to feel like someone upstairs is actually thinking. So here is the question sitting at the center of all of this. Was this latest guard signing the move that officially closed the window on this Fever team's playoff ceiling? Or is there something happening behind the scenes that we haven't seen yet? Is there a trade being assembled in a back room somewhere? Or did the front office just spend their last real chip on a problem nobody needed solved? This is the inflection point. The Indiana Fever either confront what they've built and make it right, or they sleepwalk into a summer of regret. I want your honest reaction in the comments right now. No sugarcoating. Is this incompetence, or is it something more deliberate? A front office that fundamentally does not understand how to build around a generational talent? Do you believe Stephanie White has the authority to demand what this roster actually needs, or is she being handed an impossible situation by people who have never watched real basketball a day in their lives? Drop it below, because Wednesday is coming, and the answers better come with it. And if you've been watching this unfold and nobody in your circle gets it, you're in the right place. Courtside Leaks is where we see what the cameras don't show and say what the commentators won't. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because when the next story breaks, you'll want to be the first one who knew.